Hi, this is Dr. Bushman, and we are going to be talking about creative problem solving model today. And it is 4 steps: clarify, ideate, develop, and implement. I'm going to share my screen out. So you should now be seeing the CPS model on the slide. This is created and based on the work of Dr. Puccio, Mance, Murdoch, Miller, Vihar, Firestein, Thurber, and Nielsen. They are some of the world's leading experts, or they are the world's leading experts on the creative problem solving model. And some of them are actually were my professors or mentors. And the creative problem solving process is approximately 80 years old. And it is sponsored by the Creative Problem Solving Institute at Buffalo State University. That institute is dedicated and has been dedicated to creativity and innovation in a business environment, but for the global good. And there's also a teaming model that goes along with this, which we'll be discussing in another video, called the Foresight model. And that is actually how humans think in regard to 4 different types of creative thinking. And so we're going to discuss that, and you'll see when we go through that how the two pair together, because we'll have the creative problem solving model and then a collaboration or a teaming model that best optimizes the process as well. So let's get started. So the steps in the CPS process are clarify, and there's 3 steps of the clarifying stage. And the steps are exploring the vision. And the purpose of exploring the vision is to identify the goal, the wish or the challenge. I mean, what are we trying to solve? And then the second step is to gather data. This is okay. We've stated our problem as a question, and we've then identified the goal, where we want to go. Let's say maybe we need to make more profit, or we want to start a new program, and everyone's kind of going, well, it's not in the budget, or boy, we've tried that in the past. By the way, the excuse or the reason of, hey, we did that in the past and didn't work, is the worst reason not to change. We need to be asking questions such as, well, how might it work? Let's go back and re-explore that and see if there's new technologies or new knowledge that might make it work today. And I've seen many organizations that have gone back to failed projects in the past, applied the creative problem solving process to them, and then had success in their next iteration. So it is a very powerful, powerful tool. So gathering data, this is describe, and generate data to enable a clear understanding of the challenge. It's really important to do this because we need to explore all of the information that we can possibly gather about the specific goal or the problem we're trying to solve. And then finally, formulate the challenge. And this is to sharpen awareness of the challenge and create those challenge questions that invite solutions. How might we? Wouldn't it be great if? What would it look like if? Right? Sometimes if you're working with people and it's a management situation, you might actually want to ask the question, how might we feel, or how might our organization feel if? Because that's a whole nother part of creative problem solving. It's not just for hard business problems. It also is for solving human issues as collaboration, working together, cooperation, and just appreciating each other for the humans that we are. The second step or the stage is ideate, and it's pretty simple. This is exploring ideas. There are lots of tools in each of the stages, and we're going to talk about tools later on in a different video. During the ideate stage, we're just generating ideas to answer the challenge questions. and brainwriting, brainstorming, crazy eights. There's all kinds of fun ways to do it. And this is, again, when we defer judgment, we go for quantity, not quality. After we come up with a lot of different ideas, then we vet the ideas and begin to choose some that are actually viable, that we can put into practice in our environment. The third stage is develop, and that's to formulate the actual solutions themselves. So we move those ideas into actually solutions. So we're vetting the ideas, and then we're literally creating something of value, something that would work. We begin to actually formulate a plan. How are we going to implement this? How are we going to begin the stages? What's needed? What materials? What software? What human resources? What people? How much capital? All of the different things that might come into play. We need to make sure that we can gather those, evaluate them, strengthen our solution, and then in the end, we might come up with 2 or 3 ideas that would be great, but we choose one. We choose the one that the group or the team feels like is the best. And finally, then we actually implement that. And that is where that plan comes to a fruition. And you might use a software like Microsoft Project. You might, in some of these stages, use Visio and do different diagrammings. You could use mind mapping tools. Mural is a planning tool, software tool. There's lots of different tools that we can use. The project tools are probably some of the ones that are most often used. And if you do decide to become a project manager or have a creative career, when we're talking about larger scale projects or multiple projects, I highly recommend that you do learn Microsoft Visio and Microsoft Project, because one of the things in the implementation mode is we formulate a formal plan, is we're going to explore the acceptance and identify resources and actions that will support successful implementation of the selected solution. There's an old saying that's right, many people fail because they failed to plan, right? And failing to plan is literally planning to fail. So we need to make sure that we've got a strong plan and we go through that process. And I do also recommend taking some classes on project management and risk analysis. So we've talked about divergent and convergent thinking, or we'll explore it deeply in our guideline video. But suffice to say, divergent thinking is a pretty simple idea. And that is literally taking a look at the different steps in a process, let's say. So for instance, I came from the software and IT industry, and we developed a lot of software solutions. So we would go in and we would take a look at a particular department, let's say a loan processing department in a bank. And we would sit down and we would shadow or watch people as they did their work. The end product was a completed loan application, but there were 6 to 8 steps that had to take place along the way. And each one of those steps had procedures that the loan officers had to follow. So what we would do is we would divide the one whole process into its 6 or 8 steps. And then we would look at each individual steps or process in that step and see if there were ways that we might be able to optimize or change it. And we would go through the creative problem solving process, ideate on each stage. And then what we would do is we would then converge back into these 6 steps. Okay, well, here's a process, but here's some changes in that process, and converge that back into step 1. And then we would do that for step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6. And finally, we would converge all 6 steps into one major process. And what they did, it was called throughput. What we were looking to do is look at each individual step in every process, optimize it so that it could be the best that it could be, the most productive, efficient, effective way. And then when each process and each step was as productive, efficient, and effective as it could be. When we put the whole back together, we knew we had optimized the throughput or optimized the process. That's a simple example of divergence and convergence. So some of the roles in CPS are, there's the client, there is the facilitator, and there's the resource group. So if you are working for a company and you are leading the CPS discussion, your client is your own company. If you're a consultant, like I am, I have clients that I lead through the CPS process. And my resource group are either the people that work with me or those that I engage in the process to help support what we're doing. And it's important to understand that we need all three of those elements to actually work through the CPS model. So, first stage, clarifying. Albert Einstein once said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes determining the proper questions to ask. For once I know the proper questions, I could solve the problem in 5 minutes. Kind of goes back to the whole idea of, remember, stating our problems as questions. And so there's 3 steps of the clarifying process, identifying the challenge. And that's, we said, explore the vision, gather data, and formulate the challenge. To explore the vision, again, here are some goals and kind of wish statements that we might use. Wouldn't it be great if? Or I wish. Wouldn't it be great? Or what would it look like? One question I like to ask is, if we had an unlimited budget and unlimited technology, what might this look like? So you can come up with your own question starters, but here's a couple of good ones. There's also another tool, it's called the 3 I's, and this is the thing that you want to check when you're defining your vision. And that is using the 3 I's to check for influence, interest, and imagination, right? First off, do you actually have influence over the problem itself? If not, you might not be the right department to try to solve it. 2, how interested are you? I mean, is this high value, low value? And do you really want to solve it? And the second is imagination. Do you need creative ideas? I mean, not every problem requires a full CPS process. Some are very easy to solve. But CPS is the process when we want to innovate, create, and tackle some of those difficult problems that arise. Next, remember, we need to gather data. And there's a tool that is widely used. I use this. I've actually created some 5W and H tools of my own that are derived from the continuous improvement industry or practitioner. And so we want to ask, well, who's involved? Who's aware? Who is this affecting? And what's really going on? You know, what are the important facts? All right. When does this affect me or the company or the organization most? For instance, at the end of the year, H&R Block, right, has to process millions and millions and millions of tax returns. So they might be trying to solve how they staff all of those offices with temporary tax workers, right? It's going to affect them at a particular time of the year, namely probably March and desperate people in April that are filing late. So also, where do you feel the pain the most? Is there a specific location? Is it a specific part of the budget? Is it a specific part of the process? Like, for instance, the one that I described in the loan officer business. In that bank, there was a particular part, which was the loan officers securing all of the information from the customer that was the most difficult and time-consuming part. So how we brainstormed and thought about how can we better improve that process? How can we make that better? Not only just from our standpoint, but we took the vision of what if I was the customer? What if I were trying to get a loan? What would it make it, how would it make it easy for me to get you my documentation? And we automated the entire process, including I happen to be involved in digitizing the forms and being able to actually apply digital signatures. And so home closings or loan closings, instead of being hours and hours and hours and hours, I think like my first home closing was like 4 hour meeting. It was insane, right? Down to 90 minutes. And it just makes the whole process so much easier. And think about things like Adobe Sign. Matter of fact, today I actually got a Adobe electric sign, a DocuSign, a document that I needed to put my signature on, and I opened up DocuSign, click where I needed to sign, click where I needed to initial, hit sign, off it went, and it was done instantaneously. Way back in the analog days, I would have had to go into an office, or somebody would have had to come by my office or mail that thing to me and then mail it back. And so we've had some great innovations just in the document or contract or legal industry wrapped around PDFs, electronic signatures, and the such. Why is this important to you? Good question to ask, because if it's not of high importance, it might not be a problem that is important enough to solve. It might be important to you, but is it important to the organization? And finally, maybe take a look at how you've tried to solve the problem in the past. And I mentioned that one organization who had a project that they failed at. They failed twice, 3 years ago and 5 years ago. They learned the creative problem solving process and how to work the 4 steps. And last year they had a 100% success with their project. And so it just goes to prove, just because something has failed in the past, what they did is as they looked at what they did in the past, they realized as they went through the process that they did not include 4 key stakeholders that were important. They didn't identify the who as well as they should have. And then they also didn't involve the where. And when they took those 2 things and they included the right stakeholders and the when and the where, the process actually was an IT rollout, ended up being a great success. So once that's done in the 3rd step, we need to formulate the challenge. And this is generating those well-defined challenge statements. And again, they're stated in the terms of a question. And these are what are called invitational language stems. In other words, our brain, our cognitive process, and this works the same for every human, doesn't matter where they're from, what their background is. It is just how humankind operates, how our brain works. Language will either close us off to creativity or open us up. And so we use, remember those terms, how might we, in what ways might I, wouldn't it be great if? And so we turn the data into challenge questions, not ideas yet, but a better definition of the real challenge. And we want these to be broad, but we want them to be brief, and we want them to make sure that they're beneficial, so that when we go to look at them in the ideation stage, which we're going to talk about in our next video, we have something that is not only well-defined, it's very targeted, it states the goal clearly, and the beneficial part of it is that it explains how this is going to benefit or help our organization move forward. So thanks, and I hope that you enjoyed the introductory and the 1st stage description of clarifying and the CPS process. Thanks.